Welcome back. Stasa23 here, back again with some knife therapy, and today I'm going to do something a little different than I normally do. In my last video, I asked you guys what y'all would like to see more on my channel or something different, and I got a ton of responses and emails saying that y'all would like to see show how I test the knives that I'm reviewing. And the knife that I'll be testing today is my new to me Hinder Knives half track. I got this knife on a trade, and it's not something I would normally go for because it's that beefy overbuilt stout knife, but I like the aesthetics of it, and I figured I'd give it a try. So y'all please let me know down in the comment section if this is a video that y'all like to see, if y'all want to see more of these, and any feedback is appreciated. You know, tell me it sucks, that's fine too, but constructive criticism, always welcome, and I'm always trying to do things to better the channel, and you guys help me do that. If you turn out to like this video, please hit that thumbs up button and share it with your friends and family. That way it gets out to more people, and I can reach a bigger audience. Not to mention, I'm creeping up on the 2,000 subscriber marker, and once I hit that, I plan on doing a really cool giveaway with some cool prizes, so you don't want to miss that. So hit that subscribe button if you're not already as well, and hit that bell button while you're at it so you don't miss a thing, because YouTube likes to hide videos sometimes, but if you hit that bell button, you'll always be notified when I have a new video coming out. So there you go. And let's get into the testing of this bad boy. Let's go. Being that I picked this guy up on trade, it needed to be resharpened, so I sharpened it to 18 degrees per side on my wicked edge, and it's now super sharp. Just showing the initial sharpness with the paper, and as we go through the test, I'll check sharpness along the way. I start out by cutting some decently thick cardboard. I do this test to test out the geometry of the blade, the steel performance, and the half track has a 0.164 inch blade stock, or 4.17 millimeters, which is a pretty beefy stock, but being that it has a high saber grind, it didn't struggle that bad with the this cardboard. Not as bad as I expected it to. Now, of course, once you get past the flat section of the grind, the flats, you are going to have some drag. It's not going to be your ultimate performer, but it definitely will get the job done. And it's not always terrible when you have these overbuilt knives, as long as the geometry is done right on them, or at least that's what I noticed. Now, I will say all these tests aren't always the same. Sometimes I had different materials, and this next one I'm cutting paracord just to see how it does with some more delicate material. With the smaller rope, it had absolutely no problems with the pull cutting, push cutting, but I did find that cutting on a flat surface like this cutting board I'm cutting on, I did notice that you're going to have to use that belly of the knife because your knuckles are going to bottom out on the cutting surface that you're using. It popped the paracord nicely because it started with a nice fresh edge, and the cardboard didn't do any damage. I then stepped up to this thicker braided nylon rope, which did require a good bit of force when I did the pull cuts, but did pretty good in the push cuts on the cutting board. It may not be the best at these tasks, but it definitely can get the job done in a pinch. Basically, that's what I'm trying to show with my test, and that's what I'm trying to find out myself, if it can handle all these day-to-day tasks that a lot of people use their knives for. And I know you may not use your knife for all these tasks at once, but over a period of time, Just want to show, can it do these jobs? Will this knife be able to perform in these certain tasks? And will you have any problems along the way? And showing the sharpness, still nice and razor sharp. I didn't expect any different. After that, after the rope, I moved on to some very dense cardboard used to secure like the corners of maybe a TV or something like that. And right away, I noticed it struggled, requiring a good bit of force. Whenever I would get to the flats of the knife, it acted like a wedge, pretty much tearing through the cardboard. Also, I'm showing that I show later on in a second that when I'm putting a lot of downward force on this knife, it did cause the lock to move over some, creating a little bit of layer of lockup and very, very slight lock stick, but just something definitely to note that it did engage the lock a little bit more. I noticed that on a lot of knives, and I don't know if it's because of poor geometry or the pressure that I'm putting on the stop pin. I'm not too sure. I'm not a knife maker, but I did notice it happening. I'm showing, it binding up on the flats here when you're making the cuts in this thicker, more dense cardboard. There you go. I'm showing that lock had moved over. It was about 30%. It moved over to about 40%, and a little bit of lock stick. Nothing that I'm concerned. I'd rather do that than it fail, and it definitely did not fail. Being that there's no lock bar insert, it's gonna go all up. After the after the cardboard, I next moved to some rubber that's used for sealing garage doors. It's pretty thick. It did pretty good when I'm slicing it here on the cutting board. Of course it doesn't have the thinnest behind the edge angle on there, so it's not the absolute best, but once again it gets the job done and works a lot better when I'm using a cutting board. Whenever I'm doing these cuts like this, you'll notice right off the back that that wedge that the flats are creating causes an issue right away. I couldn't get through too well with the tip. Not sure, because the tip is a good bit more robust. And right here, I'm noticing the first snag. It's probably from that cardboard. I don't know. It has a small little snag, just a little slight roll. Nothing major. Still super sharp. Now I'm cutting some plastic pallet banding used to secure stuff on pallets. It had absolutely no trouble slicing through this using the pull cuts, and I will show in a second that it did struggle trying to slice on the cutting board like that, mainly because that tip, like I said, is pretty thick, so it may not work so well even with a sharp edge when you're using that tip. The tip's made more for penetrating, piercing type stuff. It's not really meant for your delicate task in this type of knife, your harder use knives. So just having fun cutting up this stuff. I try to cut up the most material I can to basically simulate maybe a month worth of EDC use, of daily use, which most people don't even use their knives daily. You might be like me, then you just finding stuff to cut just because you want to use your knives. I had somebody ask me that recently on Instagram. What do you use all those knives for? Well, I find stuff to use them for because I find enjoyment in using my knives. So after all this cutting, like I said, you'll see I think I showed, there's one snag right there in the middle and one a little bit closer toward the tip, but something that would easily be able to be stropped out. Nothing major whatsoever. As you can see, when you're doing the slicing motion, you can't even tell it's there. Now moving on to a piece of pine wood. This is where I test the ergos, because whenever I cut or when I'm shaving wood and stuff like that, I tend to grip the knife very tightly just so the knife doesn't slip or slide out of my hands or move in any direction. And you can definitely use this knife in a pinch to make some feather sticks. It's not going to be the best. I know that it's not going to be the best for that. But if this is all you had in your pocket and you were out in the woods and you were cold and you need to start that fire, yes, you can make feather sticks with this as long as you have a good edge on there, which I would hope you keep your knives sharp. You know, what's the point of having it if it's not sharp? Just, well, have a butter knife. But I do this also for fun. It's fun. And even with the stick grind, it wasn't so bad. Now I'm just cutting big chunks just to see how much bite it has. And I'm definitely starting to feel a few hot spots. Nothing major. I'll show it in a second where I'm feeling the hot spots at. And that's the main part of this type of test, because you will definitely find really quick if you have some hot spots on a knife. You know, if you have a knife that you're holding in a store, you know, squeeze that thing as hard as you possibly can and see if it's leaving any indentions in your hands, because if it is, more than likely when you're doing some extended cutting, it's gonna bother you. Now, the hot spots on here, I wouldn't say were bad enough to where I felt like I had to have gloves on. The ergos are pretty good on this knife, especially for, like, you know, barely a 4-finger grip. But there you go. That little thumb ramp right there, that point, I was getting a little bit of a hot spot. The ramp on the clip, I was getting a little bit of a hot spot. And that jimping toward the back of the handle right there, just from, you know, bearing down, it bothered my pinky a little bit. So, like I said, nothing bad enough that I felt like I had to put on some gloves. And we're testing sharpness once again. Like I said, it's still slicing sharp, and you know, you're not going to see those snags here. We're going to test tip strength. Not something I do on every knife, especially I wouldn't do this on a paramilitary 2, just because it has that very fine tip. But being that this has a very robust tip, I definitely thought it could handle it, and I was just testing out that and doing a little bow drill divot or whatever you want to call it, or just drilling a notch, and it held up just fine. I didn't lose any tip there. Didn't expect it to. I did hold some wood on it though. There you go. And the last test I'm going to do is I'm going to break down a Coke box. And I'm only showing this because this is something I do with my knives on almost a daily basis. I break down these type of boxes, cereal boxes, milk jugs, any type of food boxes that come in my way. I break them down so they don't take up more. I'm very OCD, and then I don't want them taking up a whole bunch of room in the trash can. So of course I'm gonna have to break them down. I don't know about you, but like I said, I find stuff to use my knives on, and that box was screaming my name. My wife knows to leave them on the counter so I can cut them up. So in conclusion, the Hinder half track definitely, to me, is a jack of all trades, master of none. It can definitely get those jobs done, you know, even your delicate jobs. It's going to get them done. You may struggle a little bit here and there with your thicker materials, you know, or, you know, if you need to have a blade that have something that has a bigger blade, that might, you know, hinder you a little bit. But I like the knife. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I do, being that it's this overbuilt, hard-use knife, but it's a good EDC size for me. Fits good in the hand. It's well built. It's attractive to me aesthetically. The action is really good on this guy. The detent's dialed in. So, like I said, I just wanted to kind of give y'all a look at some of the tests I do, depending on what type of media I have on hand at the time. Depends on what I'm going to do for the testing of the certain knife that I have that I'm testing for review. And usually I only test the knives that are mine. Loaner knives, I don't usually test them unless the owner tells me I'm okay with you testing it, or they tell me to use it like I would for any of my knives. So if y'all have a loaner that y'all want to send me, just know that I won't do this with it if you ask me not to. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. Let me know if y'all like this video. Let me know if y'all want to see more of this type of video. And I hope the voiceover comes out okay, because I've never done this before. I'm doing it on an app on my phone. So this is the sharpness at the end. Still nice and sharp. Great working edge. So hope everybody's having an absolute wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.